What up, Tech?
Not much.
Say a little more.
I had cake earlier. It was delicious.
You know, like, test works fine, but I had cake. That works too. Okay.
It wasn't a lie.
snoCast! Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Snoman. Welcome to another snoCast. I hope you enjoyed last month when we talked about Donkey Kong for just what felt like hours and hours because we could talk about it forever. But Donkey Kong is over and done with in Donkey Kong month. Now we've moved on to a new topic, a new guest. Hello, everyone say hi to Tech. This is Tech over here.
Hello, people of YouTube.
You may know Tech from some of the videos I've done on YouTube. We did some Let's Plays together back in the day. But Tech is a friend of mine in real life, and he actually suggested today's topic that we're going to be talking about today. And so he just like really wanted to be on the snoCast to talk about it. He was chomping at the bit. So today's topic is art in gaming. Why were you so interested in art in gaming, Tech?
Because art decides how the game's going to age well and what's good and bad, in a way.
I was also going to say because you like to draw.
Yes.
You're an art kind of guy, right?
Yes, I am.
You can see just some fancy drawings on the wall and everything behind him. But yeah, I mean, I know Tech anyway, just that he's all about art and drawing and stuff. I'm not so much into the art and drawing aspect. I used to be into drawing a lot when I was younger, but now I'm more into enjoying art of other people. But anyway, yeah, so that's going to be our topic today. We're talking about just art in gaming, and whatever that means. I don't really know exactly what that means or exactly what we're going to touch on, but just everything all-encompassing of art in gaming. So you kind of touched on it a little bit. Tell me a little more, just saying, like, why do you think art is important in gaming?
Well, let's see. If you look at Mario, it's got a pretty... Right, as of now, since it's gone 3D, it's got a set art style. And then look at Halo. Two very different games, and their art styles kind of say, yeah, Mario, this is not a serious game. This is a cartoonish art style. Halo, this is realism. You're going to be into a more serious kind of game.
Okay, yeah, like what kind of art is in the game kind of sets the tone for how the feel of the game is. I think that's absolutely true. Yeah, I've noticed too, just like as far as like those cartoony ones, obviously you're talking bright colors, more just colorful and everything. Sometimes the realistic games are a bit duller or darker toned colored, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes that isn't always a true rule, because we've got indie games that have darker tones.
You know, and that's a good point too. A lot of different games blur the lines. Like that is the nice thing about art in general, is it's not confined to like a little space or however you think it should be. It can be whatever you want it to be. So that's a good point. There are games that are bright and colorful but serious in tone. I think of like Bastion or something like that, where it's like pretty serious, but then it's really bright and colorful and beautiful to look at. And then there's like really dull games that are also simplistic and I don't want to say kiddie, but just like you can blur the lines. And indie games kind of do that in general anyway, right? Like indie games, I feel like just break the mold in that regard anyway. They break down walls that people think we've placed up for games. That's
kind of what indie games are meant to do, kind of show you can still push for innovation in what we already know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What are some examples to you that are like that you like of the art in gaming? That was phrased terribly. What are some games that you love the art in that game? Can you think of some?
Well, TF2 for one.
TF2, and why is that?
It's a shooter, yet it's so cartoony and ridiculous.
Yeah, about what we were just saying earlier, right? It's very serious in tone, but like it's bloody and you're flying around, but very cartoony.
There's League, because they know you're going to be seeing their game from the top down, and so they design their art to kind of look pleasing from around, kind of top down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny because when I think of different games that I like the art in it, there's a wide variety that I like as well, because I think of games like Dark Souls or something that is very, serious, but the graphics are beautiful. these big expansive worlds. I think of like BioShock Infinite. I didn't really care for the game that much, but there were several times in that game where I was like, it's beautiful. Just the graphics were gorgeous. And yet, then there's the other side of the spectrum, like Shovel Knight or, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, where it's like really cartoony, or just the pixel art or whatever, more cartoony, more unrealistic looking. But I still love those, and I still think they look beautiful. And it's kind of funny how you can have both sides of it, the realistic and the unrealistic.
Mm.
I know we were talking about this before we did the snoCast, that you were saying how the unrealistic art styles seem to look better for longer.
Yeah,
Elaborate on that a bit.
Okay, well, take like the original Mario. How that game still looks perfectly okay in this day and age where we have Halo 5, Call of Duty, something. But then you look at 007, as you were mentioning when you grew up with it, you thought it was the most real thing ever. And now it's just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that is another part of it, too, because I think of, like, 3D gaming in general. If you take, like, the N64 just as the hardware, it was trying something new, and so it kind of was archaic in its art style because that was all it was limited to do, and we've gone from there. But you look at, like, the Super Nintendo, where everything was still 2D, but it looked really polished, and everything still looked really good in the 2D space. So part of it, I feel like, has to do with the leap to 3D and how that limited some people. But I do agree to a large extent how the unrealistic stuff, or even just like, I won't say just pixel art, but just like that, the older style, or at least unrealistic's a good way to put it. Just that does seem to look better longer. Like if you look at A Link to the Past, or some of the main classics on Super Nintendo, they still look beautiful. Like Super Mario World just looks amazing. You know? It's still really good graphics. And yeah, if you look at Halo, I guess, or like Call of Duty is a good example, because if you look at Call of Duty 4, that's 2007. I mean, at this point it's a little older, but I remember seeing Call of Duty 4 when it was brand new, like at a friend's house, and he had the big he had like a theater screen up in his room, and we were watching it, and I was like, this is the pinnacle of graphics. I was like, this looks the best ever, but now you play that and you're like, oh, this is totally not.
Yeah.
Or like the first Halo. I mean, the more you kind of go back, it especially shows. So I definitely agree.
Yeah.
And with like pixel art too is kind of its own little separate genre of that too, because it's distinct, and I don't know, some people love it, some people hate it. I'm a fan of pixel art. I think you are. You like pixel art?
Yeah.
that didn't sound so sure.
I find it very hard, but I do enjoy using sprite sheets to make little sprite comics. So
it is hard. I've tried my hand at pixel art. That is really hard work.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, especially animation. Like I only have done like single still image pixel art just for fun, and that takes forever and is really hard. I can't even imagine. Like if you see some really, really fluid pixel art animation, like that is amazing and really hard to do.
A lot of work went into that.
Yeah, lots and lots of work. Absolutely.
One game that's kind of blurred the lines, Minecraft, for example, that game's pretty simplistic 3D gameplay, yet it's going to last a while in terms of looks.
That is a really good example, yeah. I remember I saw Minecraft for the first time because my friend was playing it, and I was like, what? I was like, it looks so terrible, I was like, this is like a game from the 90s, what are you doing? And yet he was like, no, this is brand new, it's a new game, but it kind of has its own style. And I think you're right, like, it'll still last because it wasn't trying to, break new boundaries or, be too crazy or complex.
Yeah.
Any other? Sorry, I thought you were leading into something else. Any other games that you just like really loved the art style in those games?
Starbound.
Okay.
It's a kind of Terrarian space. It's open. It's early access right now. But the background, if you can have them on your computer, they're beautiful. And without the backgrounds, the characters and the creatures all are well crafted. It's just a really beautiful
I thought
world.
Starbound was by the makers of Terraria, so that was funny when you were telling me that it's not, because it looks a lot like it.
Except,
I think it is.
It looks more. It's more a fluid, crisp kind of in a way.
Yeah.
The guys are taller.
Well, and I guess yeah. Sorry.
And the movement's a bit different than Terraria.
Yeah, I think. What was I going to say? I haven't played it, so I haven't seen how much more fluid it is or anything. But that's a good one. Another one that I thought of that came to mind was Ori and the Blind Forest. I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of that game. It's fairly recent. I think it came out a few months ago. But that is one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. It's on Xbox One and PC only, I believe, because I think it was developed for Xbox One. But it's a 2D platformer. It's a Metroidvania game. So, I mean, it's not like breaking the mold as far as 3D graphics or being realistic. But it is seriously one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. It just looks really crazy. It's kind of got like a Lion King aesthetic going on with it. It's really weird. Like it's got the whole circle of life thing, and I don't know. Like there's a big main tree that is like the creator of the world, and I don't know. It's definitely got that whole like nature vibe going on, and so that's another one that really sticks out to me that is phenomenal. But that's a new one, and so it's kind of funny how like that one isn't. It's again trying not to be super realistic, and yet it can still look super good.
Yeah. First off, PC Master Race.
Just gotta throw that in there.
Anyway,
that's not today's discussion.
Yeah, I know. If you look at art in games over a timeline, we started off here with pixels, or here, and then kind of in the middle, it's 3D, and then we're slowly going back into pixels, and we're kind of pushing the limits of what we can do with pixels now.
I agree there. It's funny, a lot of people have jumped back to the pixel art style. I think a lot of people have nostalgia for it, but it also... we were talking about this the other day, actually, because I don't know if you've seen the whole ukulele thing that's going on.
Oh, I saw that. That looks so cool.
It's the new Kickstarter that's like a Banjo-Kazooie spiritual successor. And I could talk about that forever. But our point was we felt like when the 3D platform was king, the collectathon genre, right? Banjo-Kazooie, Mario 64, etc. When those were at their peak, I feel like they didn't reach their mass potential yet. Yeah. You know? And so I think they're going to try to push it further, just the genre of that. And what made me think of that was talking about pixel art or even just like the 2D genre, because there was another game that the developer was creating. He created a first game called La Mulana, and then he did a Kickstarter for La Mulana 2, and in his like video for that, he was saying, I want to push 2D gaming to its limits. Like he's saying, I think even though we've moved on to 3D, he feels like 2D has been neglected, and so he wants to continue to push that to its limits. And I think that goes the same for art as well. I think there's still ways to push the boundaries of art in games. Would you agree?
Yeah. Because, like, we see there's some, like, kind of storybook-esque art styles in games that you can play through. We have yet to see, like, someone made a game where you play as, like, a guy fully drawn in pencil. And, like, each movement is another drawing.
Oh, I see. Like a flip book.
Almost, yeah, like flip books.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that ever. So it could be a game someone can make where they draw it in person and then it translates to a flip book on the computer.
Oh, that'd be really cool. I mean, I agree, and I think we will see people try to push realism further, and I think they should. You know, I think that's one aspect of it that will continue to progress until it is like you were looking at another human being. And there are times where you look at some games and it's like, wow, that looks like real life. I don't know if you've experienced that yet, but it's like, I look at a game sometimes and I'm like, this is crazy. But then again, I thought that 10 years ago too. So it's just kind of funny. Like, I remember seeing the Final Fantasy movie, like, as a preview in theaters. And my mom and I were like, wow, that looks like real humans. This is so crazy how technology is coming. But, you know, obviously that's going to continue to be even more true in the future.
Yeah.
So that's part of it, is the realism.
Part of that is, when do we push the limits too far? When does it become past real life, in a way? that's we're gonna hit some of that eventually if we keep pushing our technologies the way we are.
Past real life. What do you mean?
It becomes, we push it so far that we reach the peak, but then we push it even further and become into the uncanny valley.
The uncanny valley?
It's where kind of something looks real, but it's just not quite right, and it's very unsettling.
Oh, that sounds spooky.
Yeah. So when do we push it that far that games that are realistic become that kind of uncanny valley feeling?
That's interesting. I never really thought of it that way. I wonder too, because I do think like virtual reality will kind of play a part in that as well, right?
Yeah, the Oculus Rift.
Yeah, because there's Oculus Rift and there's other things coming out too where virtual reality, I think a lot of people before Oculus Rift went through their buyout and everything, a lot of people were like, this is the future. Like, this will be games in the near future, you know, where you are in the world. And I mean, it is pretty crazy when you watch people play that stuff, and it definitely seems like it's that realistic. I haven't worn one or seen what it looks like, but it feels like you're in that world. So I think graphics will play a big part in that, right?
Yeah, I see we're kind of moving into art in games still, but we're starting to talk about us in games in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I've already seen a video where this guy has like a walking pad. That's how he moves in a first-person shooter. So what's the point when we become part of the art game art?
Well, there was a movie, right, called Gamer a few years ago. I don't know if you ever saw it. You probably didn't.
No.
He controlled like a first-person shooter game, but it was real people in real life, like in war, shooting each other and stuff. I don't know. It was kind of out there.
When we reach that point before we become the art of the game.
Yeah. And I guess that was taking it to its limits. The movie was actually pretty bad. It was kind of weird, but that's true. That's kind of weird to think about. Like, what if the art, quote unquote, is in games is literally us? Like, we are the people in the games. Now we're getting kind of like meta, kind of out there, kind of crazy.
Blurring the lines.
Blurring the lines. Well, and that's what it is, right? Talking about that. Yeah. I was gonna mention this earlier. See what you think about it. We've also mentioned graphics a lot as far as talking about arts. What do you think the difference is between art and graphics, or is there a difference? Are they one and the same? What do you think?
Graphics, well, in real life, in general art, graphics is used to kind of describe computer art, or because like there's graphic design as a course in my school that's working to make kind of signs and logos on the computer. Mm-hmm. And then I have taken studio art where I just draw the pencil and various other things. Mm-hmm. So technically all games the art is a graphic.
Yeah, that makes sense. Art is bigger than just games, but graphics is like digital.
Graphics. So graphic, I don't know. In games, I say they're kind of the same thing in a way. But then again, when you have like graphic, you can change the graphic settings, so it's kind of perhaps art is what the game looks like. Graphics are how good you can make it look.
Mm-hmm. And there's different parts too. Like there's backgrounds, there's the actual characters, there's animation and the motion. That's all different from just scenery in the game or whatever. So there's different aspects of it as well.
Yeah.
It was funny when you were mentioning graphics are the digital thing, because I was thinking when I was in high school, I took a class called computer graphics.
Yeah.
And that's what it was called. And it was learning Photoshop and how to work it and stuff. And so it was computer graphics. And then when I graduated, they changed it to digital art. And so they changed the name, and it just made me laugh because I felt like that was a more accurate name for it, an accurate representation of digital art, instead of just computer graphics, which kind of it almost makes it sound like more nerdy and techy, like computer graphics. I'm making my, my graphics card, but digital art made it sound more like you're creating something, you're actually making art. And so, yeah.
And talking about computer graphics card, it's kind of, again, it's more of how good you can make it look in a game, really, in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were talking about art being pushed to its limits. I've definitely seen different things that are out of the ordinary. I like when you were talking about like a storybook style. I've seen games that have kind of like very watercolor, feel to it, or more like it almost looks like real art in the game, is I guess what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I've seen things like that, and I like that. I like when it's blurring those lines where it's less, where it doesn't look so digital, where it's more like real art being put into a game.
Yeah.
Have you seen a game called, what is it called? Ballpoint Infinite? I'm totally butchering the name.
No.
I'd have to look it up. Ballpoint Universe Infinite or something. The whole game, and this really intrigued me, the entire game is created with a ballpoint pen. And it's a real game. All the art in the game, I should say, was created with a ballpoint pen. So all the backgrounds, all the characters, all everything. I think it's Ballpoint Universe. Because I can tell you're looking it up.
Yes, I can.
Everything in the game is hand-drawn with a ballpoint pen, and then he, I don't know, somehow imported it into the game, and the whole game is made in that ballpoint pen style. And so the whole game is super stylized to look like that. And I don't know, that really intrigued me. I thought that's pretty cool. That's something else, kind of like what you were saying about, you know, like even just doing a flip book or something that's all just like pencil art sketched, things like that. I think people are starting to push those boundaries, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And again, it's the indie games like you were talking about, you know. It's those ones that are pushing those boundaries.
I feel like AAA developer, or not AAA, bigger companies could do what indie games are doing, but they choose not to. They choose just to make more money.
Yeah. Well, hey, you're preaching to the choir. That's definitely also a discussion that we could go on about. But I think a lot of people would kind of roll these all together, that say those AAA companies, those are the ones that are making the realistic graphics. Those are the ones that are continuing to make those realistic looking games. And then indies are kind of branching out, making different styles, breaking the mold, you know, perfecting pixel art, etc. Do you think that's true, or do you think that line itself can be blurred?
That can be very blurred, because I have seen some AAA games, like take TF2 for example, that's not exactly realism at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that game's been 7 years running, so
yeah, that's true.
Kind of proves the point.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that that game has been around so long. Grow Home is a new game that's it's not indie.
Aren't you a hamster in that game?
No.
Okay.
Grow Home, which confused me because I was thinking of the other game, Gone Home, which is another game I played.
Oh yeah.
Grow Home is not indie, quote unquote, because it's made by Ubisoft, I believe. So a major company, you know, the same guys that did Assassin's Creed. But it was like a smaller dev team within that company that went off and made this indie game called Grow Home. And it looks very indie. It you know, has a very bright, colorful style and all that stuff. But that's it, you know, it's a big game company saying, "Hey, I want to make a game like this." You know, so I agree. You know, it's not just AAA's making realistic games, etc.
Grow Home, I know that game now.
Yeah.
I've seen videos of it. It looks really fun.
Yeah. I hadn't played it either, but I thought it looked really... That's another one where the art looked really good. I think it looked really pretty. Have you seen... we were talking about ukulele earlier, but Hat in Time as well?
Oh yeah, Professor Layton, Hat in Time. Wait.
No.
No, I was thinking of Phoenix Wright, Professor Layton. They have hats.
Yeah.
Same.
No,
Hat in Time, yes. That's the...
it's another one that's like a collectathon platformer that's being...
Yes.
kind of revived that genre. That's another one where just the art looks super good. I feel like that one is very much inspired by Super Mario Sunshine.
Oh yeah.
Which, you know, that's another one that's super bright and colorful. That's a funny game because when that game came out, I think everyone was like, Mario is going like green. They're trying to like push a, you know, save the world, clean earth message. They're like, Mario Sunshine, he's cleaning up dirt and messes. So that's just totally side note. But that was a very colorful, bright game, and a lot of people still regard that as a very beautiful game to this day.
Yeah. So
they took that as inspiration for Hat in Time, which again, I think they're going to take those inspirations, because like back then there were so many limitations. Like I've especially noticed this. I started playing Donkey Kong 64 again recently because I got it on a Wii U Virtual Console. Mm-hmm. And playing it back, and I'm just realizing how limited it really was. Like, you can just tell playing it now how limited it was.
Yeah.
The worlds are big. I mean, they really are, but you can tell it's like, but they're only so big, and you can tell that they're blocked off here or whatever. And I think, again, just these game companies that are trying to bring up that stuff again, they're going to push new boundaries for that genre. They're gonna really see where we can take this stuff. So that's pretty cool.
I feel like a lot of indie games are reviving older kind of concepts.
Yeah,
especially with collectathons. Microsoft tried to revive collectathons, I think, once. I don't know, they might have not been trying to, but Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts.
Yeah, that's one that a lot of people think where they failed in that regard.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not even a platformer, it's kind of just like cars.
No. Technically, you can even fly with the cars just by trying to drag a box upward.
Well, a lot of people think that was like kind of... I mean, it was near the end of it anyway, but almost like a nail in the coffin for it, because it was just so much not that and what people wanted.
They tried it. It didn't work at all.
Which, it doesn't look bad, and it's funny, because I think that game gets a lot of crap for just being what it was, but it's not a terrible game. I think if it was a different mascot, it would have been okay.
It would probably work better. But that was a very pretty, beautiful game, but it's not going to hold up to the test of time. Because it's much like Smash Bros. That's too real. It's not going to... In Smash Bros. 4, for that matter, they're going to die off because they look too real in a way.
Well, yeah, and that whole franchise, if you look at like Smash 64, it just looks terrible. Everything's all polygons and crazy, but... I like kind of shifting just a little bit. I like, we've talked about it a little bit, just touched on it, but just the concept of polish, and that's what these companies are trying to do, is really put some polish to what's already been laid as groundwork. So I feel like in the art aspect especially, that's going to be what we see a lot of in the near future. I think it's going to be a lot of polish,
Just, especially if... Yakaloo or whatever.
Ukulele? Like
ukulele.
Think of it, it's like the instrument, ukulele.
Yeah, I forgot about that. If that gets off, then we might see some more collectathons in the future, and it might just be kind of built upon that. Just different art, more polish.
I think so. I think we will. I think we'll see that a lot. A resurgence. Just like you saw a lot of pixel art come back.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years, there was so much of this whole pixel art movement, especially in the indie community. And it's almost to the point, though, where people are, like, sick of it. People see pixel art, and they're like, oh, great, another pixel art game, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people, but I can see where they're coming from, just because it's everywhere. There's a lot of that stuff. But when it's done right, it looks so good.
There's also kind of the art of... It's like almost gameplay, but kind of the end goal, what the game wants you to do in a way. Because Thomas Was Alone, that game it's literally a block of red, yet it's artistic in a way somehow.
That's actually a really good conversation. What do you think about simplistic graphics, or like overly simplistic on purpose graphics? What do you think?
I believe that when they do that, they end up move art into kind of story or the gameplay itself. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and talking about games that'll last long times, those are the ones that will, because, it's kind of like when you watch an old movie, or like even a movie at this point that's like 15 years old. You'll see like the big cell phones, or like really big clunky laptops, or anything like technology-wise that now is super dated. You watch those movies and you're like, oh, look at that, it's super dated. The ones that are trying to be up to date and showing the newest stuff at the time, those are the ones that are going to feel dated. But instead, those ones that don't show any of that, any movie that doesn't show, modern technology or anything like that, those are the ones that are going to stay, the longer.
Yeah.
I think the same is for games.
Also, the simplistic games, and they're going to be the things you play for free on some website, and then come back 5 years later, it's like, oh, hey, I remember this, and pick it up again.
Yeah. Thomas Was Alone is a really good example. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's true. That's a game that really stuck with me, even though it was so simple. That was a game, in fact, that I was shocked at how well you could feel like an emotional connection to characters, even though they're just little blocks, you know?
It's kind of part of the art of the game.
The narrator gave them personality, and he gave them character. It was really impressive, actually. You know, I think the art played a major role in that. I think, you know, part of it was just how he told that story, the narrator. But the art itself was part of it too. That's a really good example.
The Stanley Parable, I know, is a game that kind of pokes fun, but kind of opens your eyes to different games and different art styles.
Yeah.
Like Stanley Was Alone, it looks like Portal and Valve, but it's got like a narrator. You can fight the story. It takes you to like Minecraft, and part of it if you're smart enough to get there. But just like that kind of opens your eyes. It's like art isn't always graphics. Mm-hmm. It can be the story, the gameplay, how things are designed.
Yep.
The type of game, even.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely think we were talking about this a little bit, that the art itself can tell a story, you know, or at least help tell that story. Can you think of some examples of that, or maybe, I don't know, just do you think that's common? Is that a thing that's good in a game for that to have?
It's good for a game you're going to get invested into. It's not a game that you're just going to probably sit down and play with your friends at night. Yeah.
That one that you get sucked into, that's a good point. Because that's true. When I think of those games that have really stuck with me, or I finished and was just like, wow, you know, it just left me in awe or something, I think are those ones where the art kind of helped tell that story.
Yeah.
Bastion's another good example where just everything looked good. I mean, of course, the art was great, but just the way that it like built itself around you too, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen Bastion, but how he's running down, you know, just hallways and stuff, and it's building in front of him as he's walking, and everything's coming into formation around him, and that, I think that's part of its charm, just the way it's lasting impression. But that's also telling the story, because, you know, the story is how everything's broken, it's fallen apart, the world has been turned to shambles, and so this is all that's left, is these little walkways and the places you're going and stuff. So
wait, isn't it a game with you're the little tiny pixel guy and you're walking down tiny worlds or something?
No, Bastion actually has pretty good graphically.
I'm thinking of another game you did on your channel.
I think you're thinking of Small Worlds?
Small Worlds, yeah, like that's another game. You discover there's no text. It's just kind of, as you go deeper, from what I saw of your video, it kind of more broken down facilities every time you go into a new world. That's
talk about like silent storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For those that haven't seen, I did a free game Friday on a game called Small Worlds. You're a little pixel guy. I think you're like 3 pixels high. You're just a really tiny thing. Like, and it's not even like just pixel art. We're talking like really broad pixel art, like very wide, broad pixels. It's not like very detailed. But as you explore, it's dark all around you, so there's just a little circle of light around your character. But then as you explore and platform your way around, the light continues to where you've gone and visited. So you expand, and it grows. Like, the world grows as you explore it, which I think that's really cool. Like, you're running around jumping on platforms, and you're shrinking, getting smaller as the world is getting bigger. That's definitely talk about a game where the art tells the whole story. Like, there is no storytelling except for the art showing. It's kind
of derived from, we have picture books, children's books that do that, you know.
Yeah.
And without kind of traditional art and traditional books and movies, even, we wouldn't have a lot of the art and games we do, because they have to pioneer those concepts somewhere.
Well, yeah, it is interesting to see how the different mediums, like books, movies, etc., you're seeing a lot of that stuff spill over into games, because I think storytelling in general has evolved so much over the last 20 years or whatever. Like the way you told the story on the Super Nintendo was like a text box, right?
Yeah.
So someone's telling you the story and you just take it because you're reading it, which would be like reading a book, right?
Yeah.
But now it's evolved, especially in those realistic games with cutscenes and things where it's like watching a movie. So it's funny how they've adapted the different, things from different mediums to tell their stories.
The art in games, gameplay of games are kind of its pioneering thing in the interactiveness. Except art, storytelling, the cinematics we have, that's all been pioneered by movies, TV, books, media.
That's a good way to look at it. The innovative part of games is the interactivity.
Yeah.
The fact that you're a part of it.
Yes.
You're interacting with it. So, that's a good way to look at it. But the rest of it is kind of derived from other parts.
So art cannot exist without other arts.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think games take huge inspiration from those other things. Absolutely. Anything else just about art and gaming in general that you wanted to touch on?
Colors.
Colors. Tell me about colors.
Well,
What are colors?
let's see. There's red in the background. There's a red guitar in the background as well. My shirt's red. There's some blue, some green.
Very
That's color.
red. Very red on your side of the screen.
Oh yeah. Right behind the screens, there's some blue. Though.
Okay.
Colors. Kind of. You have the sometimes art games, Mega Man character art. He's blue because blue was the largest color palette. Right. So, does the color affect what you can do for art in games?
Well, and again, talking about limitations, right? Because, I feel like that's another reason he was blue, is because you could do, the light blue and the dark blue, and have him look detailed with such limited colors, know. But nowadays and stuff, you could have hundreds and hundreds of colors on a character, but some of them still keep that signature style. Yeah.
So kind of color can be a limiting factor in art, especially. I'm going to assume that Mario's mostly red because most of the other things in Mario are red as well.
Yeah, that's another one. I remember watching something about how you could only fit so many pixels, when they were making Mario Bros. So, they added the mustache just to have more detail on the face, so it wasn't just like a blank face. Mm-hmm. Just anything to give a little bit more character to your character.
Yeah. So kind of color can help storytelling of the game. Kind of defines a character's art in a way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Color... it's kind of dumb to be like, color is all of art, but I mean, if we're talking art, that's a major part of it.
Yeah. Color isn't all of art, because you can have simple white and black art. Mm-hmm. Just pencil, graphite.
Yeah.
So, color is kind of an added form of art. It's like most of the things I draw, I don't prefer to use color, because I don't if I mess up, I usually can't fix it.
Yeah.
If you choose the wrong colors, it's going to look terrible no matter how good your line art is. So, picking the right color is definitely going to define in a game how good it looks. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly important. I think colors have a lot to do, in my opinion, with theming in a game. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that different colors have different meanings. A lot of people relate, red with anger, etc., blue with being sad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you can use that a lot to your advantage for theming in games. If there's, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but characters that are those colors, they could represent different emotions, or maybe that character's personality is related to those colors. I think that could be used for a lot of advantage in games.
Yeah.
Because they do that in TV shows and stuff too. I watched a thing about Breaking Bad and the use of color in Breaking Bad, because he as he progresses in the show and becomes more rich and notorious, he wears more of tan or colors that royalty would wear, things like that. And so you just see progressions like that. It's way more in depth than that, but you get the point where just as it goes, you start to see that theme be driven home
Oh yeah, especially if you look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Raphael.
There you go. Yeah,
Red. He's really angry. I'm trying to think
that's
of.
true.
I don't know. I can't think of any game character. I can think of Kratos, but I don't. He doesn't derive from red equals anger color.
Well, and that's just one example of using color, but it doesn't have to be associated with that either. It could also just be, you know, if you associate that color with that person. It could be as simple as that. Like Mario is always red, you know, and you just associate red with Mario. It's not because he's angry. It's just like that's Mario's color, you know, and Luigi's always green. And so you can do things like that where just the way your mind associates a color with a character, you can drive things home with that. You know?
Yes. Also, you can make a character look really bland and have like splashes of color that equals pay attention to these.
Yeah.
Like, I guess Shadow of the Colossus is an example of that.
Okay, yeah.
The weak points on the Colossuses.
Yeah, different colors that emphasize different parts.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think of like Kingdom Hearts. I don't know if you ever played Kingdom Hearts. Light and dark is like a major theme in that game, right? In fact, pretty much the whole game is about being the light and fighting the darkness, right? So every evil character in that game is dark in some way. You know, everything has like the Heartless are tiny black monsters, and everything is black like that.
Yeah.
But then, if you look at Sora, Donald, and Goofy, they're bright and colorful. You know, they're always really bright in contrast to the enemies that you're fighting, and just the way that light is always related to them in some way, and then darkness is always related to the evil in some way.
Yeah. Though the Kingdom Hearts still, I played the demo a lot of Dream Drop Distance.
Mm-hmm.
Those enemies are full of color, yet they're evil. So that kind of breaks the rule of that.
Yeah, that's true. I was thinking of like the first game specifically.
Oh, yeah.
But there are exceptions. I mean, I'm just thinking of especially like the regular Heartless enemies, because those are and those are kind of the first ones you ever encounter. So it kind of just sets that precedent from the beginning. But that's just one example. There you could fill in the blank with so many games that do that. I think color, you're right, can set the tone for so much of what you're trying to do with your game.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good call. Color is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Choice of color is important. I think of going back to Shovel Knight. That's another game that I look in high regard to how they do pixel art very, very well. The animation super fluid for being pixel art. But also, and I didn't know this until recently, they used the same color palette as like the old NES. So even though they are allowed to have more colors on screen than the NES did, each like specific character will only have 5 colors or less. So and I
Shovel
noticed
Knight,
this, yeah.
Dark Knight.
Well, just take Shovel Knight. Like I did this. I like I was saying, I tried my hand at pixel art just for fun. I drew a whole ton of Shovel Knight characters.
I saw that.
And oh yeah, I showed you. That's right. And I noticed as I was drawing them that each character would only have 5 or less colors, and one of those 5 would either be black or white too, just for like border or whatever. Yeah. So very limited colors. Like I think Shovel Knight's 4 colors that aren't black or white are a blue, a lighter blue, a brown, and that may actually be it. And then black and white would be the 5. He's very limited. Maybe a second. No, there's only the one brown. Either way, it doesn't matter. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, back to like Mega Man. That's the exact limitation that had Mega Man being blue.
So I was super impressed with that because they used that limitation, and yet still it felt like it was expanding that.
Yeah.
Even though they limited themselves because they wanted to stay true to their inspiration, they still took it to new levels, which I thought was really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Shovel Knight's pixel art. Anything else on art?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, that was good. What?
I was going to say we hit all the topics.
Good. I thought we did. We had a good talk. Art is very important. Clearly. I mean, anyone can tell you that.
Yes.
But I think it's more than just the visual aspect of a game. It can be so much more, right? It could be the main focus of a game. It could be what tells the story in a game. It could be what draws you in. Because I think... Sorry, go on.
So anyone out there who does art, don't be afraid to try something new. Push the limits. I mean, like abstract art, and modern art, for that example, a lot of people just kind of just say they're nothing. But there's some really good ones. So don't be afraid to push limits.
Go become an artist. You'll be better than me, I promise. If you stick your mind to it.
Yeah.
I did do a lot of drawing when I was growing up. In fact, I could still draw if I wanted to. Sometimes what I'll do, this is just funny and total side note, if I ever am doodling, I'll do a completely random, just totally jagged shape of just totally random lines. It's just random, and then I try to create a character out of that shape.
That's how most characters are created. That's one way I saw.
That's awesome.
Create a character like that.
I'll just not even, and really fast, I'm not controlling it, just whatever, that. And then I'll try and look at it and try and make a face on it and then expand it and make it a character.
Yeah. I was in a Photoshop class, I did that once, and I created a Cthulhu manatee thing.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
So yeah.
Well, good. Thanks for being on, Tech. Again, this is just a good friend of mine. He suggested the topic of art and gaming, so he wanted to talk about it, and I was like, let's do it. We'll talk about art. Again, my knowledge of actual art or techniques or anything like that is pretty limited. That's why I brought in the expert over here, the other guy, whatever. But thank you for being on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you were here. And we'll see you guys on the next snoCast. I was going to mention this. I mentioned it last time. There is a Snoman Gaming subreddit on reddit.com. It's just r Snoman Gaming. One of those topics in the subreddit is snoCast ideas for future snoCasts. So if you ever have ideas for other topics, you can put that right there in that Reddit topic, that thread, and we'll look at them. I'll probably do them at some point in the future.
Probably.
I mean, unless I just really don't like it, but most likely I will like it and want to talk about it. Kind of like art and gaming. There you go. That was a suggested topic. So there you go. But thanks again, Tech, one last time, and we'll see you guys on the next snoCast.
Yep.
Until then, peace out. Any parting words?
PC Master Race.
We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
See ya.
Snow!